Hey y'all, and welcome back to Carbon Scoring, the best place for action figures and comics history. I am so excited because we're finally up to episode 4 of our look at every Marvel Legends figure made of Spider-Man's friends and foes. And you know what that means. It's time for the 1980s, the era when I first started reading Spider-Man comics. We're going to dig into the history of these characters and the creators who brought them to life. And I promise I'm going to do my very best to recreate some of the most famous artwork of the 1980s using action figures. So hop on board and get ready to cruise through my childhood, Spider-Man of the 1980s.
Carbon Scoring here. Looks like you boys have seen a lot of action.
In this video series, we've been going chronologically through Spider-Man's history, delving into his supporting cast and the action figures made of those characters. We started with sturdy Steve Ditko's earth-shattering run that created the vast majority of Spidey's Rogues Gallery and set the tone for all of the web-slinger's adventures to come. Jazzy Johnny Romita took over the title and not only created his own memorable cast, but defined the look of the webhead for decades. Then, in the 1970s, Kane and Andru produced epic books while introducing such lasting characters as Morbius and the Punisher. But the 1980s were a resurgent golden age for comics. We saw the rise of independent comics, led by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was the dawn of epic events, with company-wide crossovers such as DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths and Marvel's Secret Wars. And after the midpoint of the decade, the publication of perhaps the two greatest comics of all time, The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, sent comics down a darker, grittier path. Meanwhile, Marvel Comics was experiencing a creative boom, led by spectacular writer-artists such as Frank Miller on Daredevil, John Byrne on Fantastic Four, and Walt Simonson on Thor. As revolutionary as these creators were, much of their success was due to a return to the type of stories that made Marvel unique in the first place. Character-driven storytelling that weaved multiple plot lines across numerous issues, featuring strong supporting casts and compelling adversaries. As we will see, that same recipe for success was put in place on the Spidey titles, beginning with a young John Romita Jr. taking over the art chores on Amazing Spider-Man. J.R. Jr. has long since outgrown the lengthy shadow of his famous father and become one of comics' greatest illustrators. But in his early days on the book, his style was clearly influenced by his pop. Teaming with writer Denny O'Neil, Romita Jr. was off and running, co-creating Madam Web in issue 210 in November of 1980. Since our last figure of Madam Web came in the Toy Biz 5-inch line, I'm using this custom figure in my display. The pair quickly added Hydro Man in issue 212, and Hasbro gave us an updated version of the character in the Molten Man Build-A-Figure wave in 2019. The old villain Whizzer was reintroduced as Speed Demon in issue 222, a fill-in issue by Bill Mantlo and Bob Hall. This great 2016 Speed Demon figure also came with a tiny little Silvermane head on an RC car. Fabulous! But things really got rolling in January of 1982 when writer Roger Stern teamed up with Romita Jr. for one of the most acclaimed runs on The Amazing Spider-Man since the 1960s. Stern had been cutting his teeth on Spidey's sister title, Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man. He brought consistency to the often random-feeling book. He fully understood Peter Parker as a down-on-his-luck guy. Every time he took one step forward, it would be 2 steps back. Stern brought this classic storytelling over to the main title, and when paired with Romita's improving artwork, well, it was magic. The early highlight of their run was the 2-part Juggernaut story. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a juggernaut as a massive, inexorable force or object that crushes whatever is in its path. Stern and Romita brought this definition to 4-color life, as Juggy literally starts from the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean and heads on a straight line towards Madam Web, no matter what comes in his path. Spidey does his best to stop him in heroic and occasionally comical ways, eventually sinking him in 40 feet of wet concrete at a construction site. The outcome wasn't the point. It was the determination, the willingness of Spider-Man to keep fighting against truly impossible odds. These creators understood Spidey's appeal as the ultimate underdog, containing a heart that will never quit. But the Stern Romita team-up peaked with the Hobgoblin saga. Imagine a villain with all the resources of Norman Osborn, but with none of the crazy. That was the Hobgoblin. Where the Green Goblin was manic and reckless, the Hobgoblin is methodical and cruel. And while there have been newer figures, nothing comes close to this 2006 action figure from the SpiderMan Classics line. Very few characters have ever been so perfectly captured in plastic as this one. The appeal of the Hobgoblin storyline wasn't just providing Spidey with a worthy foe. It was a mystery tale, set from the beginning to keep you guessing as to the Hobgoblin's true identity. All of those side characters that Roger Stern had been introducing in the books, from Ned Leeds and Lance Bannon at the Daily Bugle, to those aristocrats at J. Jonah Jameson's private club, were now suddenly suspects in the game. The letter pages were filled every month with different hypotheses to Hobby's true identity. The fan base was fully engaged, and Marvel even ran a full-page house ad in the comics. The story would come to a head in issue 250. It was a major turning point, not just for Spider-Man, but for yours truly, because it was the first Spidey comic I ever read. Look, I'm biased, but issue 250 was a masterpiece. It had it all: suspense, action, humor, and phenomenal art, with Romita Jr. being inked by Klaus Janson. I know the corner box says steal it, but my grandfather fronted my 10-year-old self the 60 cents that set me on this path. And you better believe I've still got it. At the end of issue 251, the Hobgoblin had disappeared, and Spidey went off to fight in the Secret Wars. And when he came back, a bold new era for the web-slinger had begun. Before we get to that, let's hop over to the sister titles, Marvel Team-Up, Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man, and Web of Spider-Man, to see what characters and figures they introduced in the 1980s. August of 1982 brought the first appearance of Vermin in the pages of Captain America 272. Vermin would go on to play a crucial role in the Kraven's Last Hunt saga. While we don't have a true Marvel legend of him yet, this Vermin figure came from Toy Biz in their Dark Side line dating back to 2000. White Rabbit first appeared in the pages of Marvel Team-Up 131 in July of 1983 with this jaw-dropping Paul Smith cover. And look who else is hanging out: the fabulous Frogman, who actually first appeared 10 issues earlier and is perhaps my favorite Marvel Legend figure of the past couple of years. Another of my favorites, the Spot, first appeared in Spectacular 98 and got cover billing on issue 99. I do have a kind of crappy custom that I got off of eBay years and years ago. This seems like a no-brainer figure for Hasbro to release. Plus, how cool is that cover? Finally, Robbie Robertson's high school nemesis Lonnie Lincoln first appeared in the pages of Web of Spider-Man 36 back in 1998 as the supervillain Tombstone. But back over at the flagship title, The Amazing Spider-Man, there was a completely new creative team in place. Romita Jr. left the book to take over the artistic chores on Marvel's best-selling title, The Uncanny X-Men, and Roger Stern, seeing a new artist and a new editor in place, figured this was a good time to make an exit. So Marvel brought in an established writer in Tom Deflaco and a 24-year-old newcomer named Ron Frenz. The two were initially hired only for a 6-issue run, but they worked so well together that they were named the permanent creative team, and Frenz went on to draw 21 regular issues as well as annual 18. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I am a huge Steve Ditko fan. Well, luckily, so was Ron Frenz. He has said that drawing Spider-Man was his dream job, and if he ever got the chance, he was going to go full Ditko. That gets the carbon scoring seal of approval. Never before or since has an artist come as close to the feel and style of Ditko than Frenz, while still making the book uniquely his own. Obviously, their run started with a bang, introducing the black suit in the now classic Amazing Spider-Man 252. But they didn't stop there. The crime lord known as the Rose appeared in the next issue. And the issue after that saw the return of Jack-o'-lantern as Spidey searched for the missing Hobgoblin. Ron Frenz helped design the villain Puma for issue 256. Thomas Fireheart started out as a foe, but he would become one of Spidey's staunchest allies. This excellent figure came as part of the Kingpin Build-A-Figure wave in 2019. Another classic character, Silver Sable, was introduced in issue 265. Her figure came in the same wave as Puma. Despite taking the Hobgoblin saga to new heights, editorial differences would prematurely end Deflaco and Frenz's run on the title, but not before they released one more epic story. The two-part Firelord battle saw the cosmically powered being come to Earth literally to get a pizza, not joking. But when innocents started getting hurt, it was up to Spidey alone to stop him. The tale was reminiscent of Ditko's Master Planner saga and the Stern Romita Juggernaut story. Spidey was hopelessly outmatched, facing a superior foe. At one point, Spidey gains a moment's respite and realizes he can just return to being Peter Parker and get Firelord off his back. But as he's changing, his wallet drops open to a picture of Uncle Ben, and he realizes he can never shirk his responsibility and vows to stop Firelord no matter what it takes. It takes everything. But in the end, the indomitable spirit of the Amazing Spider-Man wins the day. And Ron Frenz and Tom Deflaco had left a definitive mark on Spidey's history. I'd love to show you my Marvel Legends Firelord figure, but I can't, because he hasn't gotten a new figure since this one appeared in 1995. So while my favorite run had to come to an end, a new artistic vision was on the horizon that would change Spider-Man forever. But for that, you've got to wait till the next episode. Thanks for coming along as we journey through Spidey's comic and action figure history together. Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can stay up to date with all the great stuff coming at you from Carbon Scoring.